message. So, okay, sorry. So, the recording is in the drive. I sent it as an email, but it is under the drive, under the St. Lucia implementation. And I have implementation training, and there is the link to the training. So it's all, everything is in the drive, but I did send it. So it's there as well. And it's, everything is in the drive. And I know sometimes in the drive, we have so many different links. It's like, which one is this? So if you have any questions, absolutely reach out. So barring no other questions, I'm going to reduce seeing myself here, and so I can see this better. Okay. So we already did the stakeholder mapping last week. We talked about the inception meeting, and now we're going to go on to the first iteration of the capacity development program. So this does fall a little in tandem with the inception meeting because you're doing some capacity building, and it's not necessarily like a linear process in the sense that we actually did first do our inception meeting before we went out into the communities because we had so much to kind of put together. However, you may find in the iteration that to bring people into the inception meeting, you may need to, do some information and capacity building, or just a presentation a little bit on the project. And most of the capacity building really happens subsequently, but it doesn't have to follow this path. That's how we did it. I believe that in the DR, Yolandi could correct me if I'm wrong, that you might have done some capacity building before you actually did your inception meeting, when you went into the communities to make them aware. So I have provided the knowledge, the PowerPoints that we did in Antigua for our capacity building that you can review and adapt accordingly. And of course, if you need some one-on-one time with this, that's fine, but we're just building the work plan. So, because the first place, like I said, you're starting is just to get those surveys and the baselines done, and the stakeholder mapping. So you've already done that. When you're doing the outreach invite to the inception meeting, which is where you actually first do the large capacity, like the information about the project, and we come on board. And which we talked about the last time, and you have that PowerPoint there, you let extend or expand that capacity building and that information. And our capacity building products, which are this link, we talked about, or what's the nature of biodiversity and what constitutes conservation.
Hi, Nicola, we lost you for about 15 seconds again.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. Just the time when the internet is being naughty. Anyway, so our capacity development consisted of awareness about conservation and biodiversity. Of course, we start with the introduction to the project, a little blurb, just a quickie, and then of course mainly constituting biodiversity and conservation. What does that mean? Because most people don't really know. And then what the government has signed on to and has agreed upon. So we looked at what the so that's, and of course you would have done that. That's what we discussed in the last one. You would already have looked at the policies and plans. So you'll just break them down in simple terms for the communities. This is what the government has signed on to, or and then in that capacity building, at that point, you're also gathering feedback from the communities to develop the social accountability mechanism. So if you are just starting with an initial capacity building, just to introduce the project prior to the inception meeting, for instance, then you wouldn't get into all of these details. You're just letting them know about the project, getting them invested. And then when we're moving towards the more in-depth capacity building in terms of developing the social accountability tools. Now, if I'm losing you at any point, please stop me. So before we actually got to the development of the social accountability tools and that part, we did do some capacity building because we were introducing the communities, and they came, their interest, of course, was also piqued by the CEPF small grant. So in introducing the small grant, we did capacity building at the same time. And we did that earlier, and subsequently, we then worked on developing the social accountability tools. But for you as iteration, because these tools have already been developed, I put them together, so you had them in place, you could actually do it at the same time, just dependent on your experience and your community and what's on the ground for you. So you will determine this, because, and which you're going to see all throughout this, the GPSA perspective is always about adaptation, learning and growing. So whatever you do, they're not expecting that you know everything. They expect that every project gives us the opportunity to learn and grow, and you adapt the project accordingly. So and make the adjustments. So this is what we did, but we also had to develop all of these tools. You can adjust and adapt it accordingly. So if to get people to inception meeting, you might do a half an hour capacity development introduction to the project, a little bit about what we're about, and biodiversity and what constitutes social accountability, that kind of thing, which is what the inception meeting will be about. And of course, by the time you get there, we will go over these things more in depth, and so that you're comfortable and specific. So the capacity development is basically an ongoing process. Maybe that's a good summary. It's what you do ongoing throughout the project. But then we have targeted capacity development in terms of developing the social accountability tools and mechanisms and with the community. So some of this may not be fully clear at this point, and we will do more in depth in terms of the collaborative social accountability tools. We certainly will be doing the training so that you will have a lot more familiarity by the time you get to this developing of the social accountability tools. And because, like I said, that part of it where we're developing the social accountability tools, you're presenting the information, biodiversity, what is conservation, and then the government policies. And then what you're doing with the community is you're getting their feedback. And that feedback in terms of what are they, now that they know about what the government's policies and plans are, what are the concerns that they have in terms of protecting their KBA, what are the issues that they're based, and then what would they like to see as a service delivery. And usually this needs to be very, very simple. And we break it down. So they'll present you hear a lot of feedback from them, they issue their concerns, their complaints, and then you can say, okay, what you need is, for instance, on our side, illegal dumping was an issue, so fines and charges against and monitoring of illegal dumping. We don't have a management plan, and they were like, we'd like this to happen or that to happen, but for that to be in place, you need a management plan. So these are all the policies and plans and environmental laws. So once you get their question,
it's just a curiosity question.
Yeah.
As opposed to your process or anything. Did you find that when you went in, people had some kind of connection to the protected area, to the KBA? Like they had some kind of relationship?
No.
To it, or? Okay.
They really did. most people don't even know they're living in a protected area,
Right. Okay, that's
right?
okay.
So that's why.
Well, excuse me, Nicola. In our case, yes, they have a connection with the protected areas. In some
Ah.
cases, a really bad connection because
Right.
they
Right.
conflicts with the agriculture there, and they were evicted. Many
Ah.
communities,
Right. Yes, of
Ah.
course.
and yes,
Ah,
and that's the case in Dominican Republic.
right. So I don't believe that it'll be very different in St. Lucia. I'm not sure about Jamaica, but I doubt. And St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I'm not sure how they are, much they're aware of what is protected area. Here, because we haven't had anybody physically removed, we do have policies for fishing, but we don't have, etc. We do have those, but we don't, I see, but I just saw a comment from Dwayne, so sorry, I was just looking at if there was a chat. Anyway, and we only have one area that's not in this, the KBA that we are targeting for this project, which is monitored national parks, and they will then monitor the fishing and prevent illegal fishing, et cetera, et cetera. So they manage it and implement. For our protected area, there are no repercussions because there's no monitoring, there's no management. So therefore, nobody's having any negative impact. Things are just proceeding. So, but that's interesting because it would be a different experience, and that's why this is adapted and adjusted accordingly based on the knowledge. People here where we are don't know anything, are not aware, don't have any idea of policies or plans because we don't have anything happening in terms of management, right? So it would depend on the KBA that's being targeted, I'm assuming, and if they're in for the project and if there are any community impact. So yes. So I think certainly when our early capacity building did inform when we went to do the indicators and get the citizen and develop the citizen scorecard. And so the citizen scorecard is essentially a survey and getting the feedback from the community about their feelings about the protection of the KBA. When we did that, nobody even could, they could answer very few questions in terms of the policies and plans. They only really could answer things like, what do you think about the care of your environment? But when you said the management of the area, they don't know anything. They don't even know what that is. So, but those are what we are measuring, the management of the area, because that's how it's protected. So obviously it's non-existent for us. Most people don't even know it exists. So hopefully by the end of this project, of course, that's the goal, to change some of that and maybe have some actions in place, improved actions in place. And then we did the service delivery index. And of course, this will develop, get more awareness about this. And that is based on more quantitative data. So the qualitative is just the community's, feedback, what their opinion is. But the service delivery index is something practical. And that's when we're working with the public sector, that the public sector will say, these are the services that the community wants to see improved or distinct actions taken. So there is some research in terms of what's being done in terms of service delivery. For us, very little, but we had like national solid waste, where because we want to address illegal dumping, they did do some charges, and there were charges and fines implemented for illegal dumping, and we were able to get that number and present that and the areas where that was done. Of course, it's still way less than needs to be, but at least you can say, okay, this is it, and we want to see an improvement. So hopefully, as the project evolves, if they had 1, we can have 5 kind of thing, charges and fines meted out, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's an example. And in terms of service delivery, and we determine that based on what the community wants. So you get their feedback, and in social accountability, you then present this feedback to the public sector and say, are you in agreement with these indicators? So if National Solid Waste said, we don't plan to do anything in this regard, then they're not going to work with us. I mean, it is, you present this to them, and they want to partake in the negotiation and the collaborative meetings. Because, and for the most part, I mean, we've had, well, not everybody, but we've had good responsiveness and participation. So like I said, if a community wants something, this is not to be combative. Collaborative social accountability is not to be, you know, conflictual or anything or along those lines, or it's or combative. They're not, they come in agreeing to wanting to do something about these particular concerns that the community is expressing, and how you can work together to hear and take action. So all along this, you will see adapt CSA tools to local context, refine program-based and experience. And that's just ongoing. You'll see, like here, when I show the timeline, it's just ongoing. You're always refining it. You're always adapting it. If you do the first one and you see this is what people are responding to, this is, you could always adapt it. It's not set in stone, and you can just report on some of those adaptations. And like, certainly, like in our case, when we went in, we hadn't, I discussed this before, but just as a context, like the Ministry of Education, we hadn't approached them, but the community said, we want more education. We want to bring more awareness. We'd like it to be implemented in schools. So they're willing to come on board, because that's something, that's a service delivery from education they'd like to see improved. So, and then we heard that across the board. So we added that on, and therein connected with them and asked them to participate. So you may start with certain public sector and then evolve it. So this is always an evolving and growing project. If anybody has any questions, stop me. Some of this may seem like, you know, a lot, but it's a same, once you get moving and you do the first part. So we're getting more into the second part of the project. Of course, last week we talked about the first half, which is a lot, and that's what you need to focus on, but it's good to have the whole context. And then when you're getting more into these areas of it, of course, we will have more one-on-ones or meetings in regards to what this looks like and what to do here, because we're here, of course, all the way through. At least, so this one, so you're just basically training people in social accountability tools and mechanisms. So Intech now is doing their that training session in out of Intech, and of course we will be doing one aiming for March, April. I think Dwayne and Nicole, I don't know if you had a chance to set a timeline or discuss this on the side, but we are going to determine a timeline where we will do an English-speaking community and do the specific social accountability mechanisms and discuss collaborative social accountability. And it looks like we'll probably do that twice. And that, of course, will be certified. When we discussed that before, so that's in discussion still. But you're also, when you're doing any capacity building, you are talking about social accountability, less in depth, obviously. I mean, to quote Rosemary from, which you haven't met her, Sherry Ann, but she's at the GPSA side, and we have lots of meetings, and next meetings you will come to. When you're in the community, teaching about social accountability is actually doing the social accountability, asking them the questions, getting their feedback, developing the tools, and sharing those tools with them. That's really, and then when they come into the meetings, they're aware of the indicators, they're aware of what the service delivery, what they're looking for, so that they can participate and engage in the quarterly meetings with the public sector. So the social accounting mechanisms are that, so the learning and the understanding of this is actually, especially for the community, is by doing. They're turning up to the meetings, they're learning about social, service delivery index, asking for these to be addressed and adapt and concerns met, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like integrated into everything else we're doing, but this, when they're getting in more into depth, most of it is learning by doing in the communities, and then we're having the certification. So I did that one, first iteration, that one, here we come. So again, this is just, I left this in, it sounds like a little bit of a repetition, but it just to reinforce that the approach that GPSA takes, where everything is adapted, adjusted, and you're just adjusting and adapting it as you go along based on needs and learning. That's the big thing for the GPSA. And then, so at least 5 CSOs and 3 PSIs have received technical assistance and mentoring. So that's just they're participating in the quarterly meetings, they're being supported throughout as needed at the communities that you're working with. And so this is very much when you're on the ground, everything starts to make sense, right? So last time we did speak about this, the MOU, so we've covered that because that's part of what you'll be working on right now, but the MOUs can be ongoing. You can sign MOUs from the end of the project, as far as I'm concerned, and get participants involved, probably like till the end of like 2024, because we're still signing MOUs and we're still bringing partners in. So we talked last week, we also talked about the dashboard, which is a process. So we'll come back to that more, just wanted to bring that awareness to the dashboard. And so here the CSA framework is the MOU. So once you get at least one MOU signed, and for the iterations, the requirement is at least one CSA framework, which is the MOU signed. So if you get more than one MOU, by all means, but you meet the requirements if you get one MOU signed in each of the countries. So St. Lucia, Jamaica, St. Vincent, Bahamas. I don't know where you are with Haiti right now. I don't know if that even be possible with Haiti, but you can maybe get a verbal one. So anyway,
I don't think Haiti is going to be in this CSA.
There
is no state in Haiti.
There is no state yet. I
Yeah.
didn't add them, so I left them out based on an assumption.
I think, we haven't had sort of a formal,
Right.
word on that, but certainly
yeah.
for the CSA component, I just don't see how it's bad.
I don't think so either. So I didn't add them. That actually eases some of your work. So yay. So anyway, you sign the MOUs, they're in place, and the MOUs you're meeting quarterly. That's basically what this is. So
sorry, Nicola, would it be
Yes.
possible for us to see one of your MOUs?
Yes, it's in the
Dropbox.
It's in the Dropbox. So
Okay, great.
last week I talked about the MOUs. I know there was a whole lot going on, so you might not remember all the details. But I had the non-binding agreements here,
Yes, okay.
and then I have it in the
Right.
draft. So all the links, so it's, you see, MOU templates.
Apologies.
So
Perfect.
it's
Thank you.
easy for you because I know it's hard in the drive. So everything is a link as you go along. Where is that information? You just come to this and you find all the links that take you to the content that you need to, for ease of finding, because I know it can drive you like forever looking for this, for that. So it's all there, but anytime you're lost, just ask me. Yeah. So basically, when we are, here we are up here, sorry. So developed at least, okay, we're up here again. So it's functioning. So you've signed the MOU and they're participating basically in the quarterly meetings. They're turning up, they're, and not just turning up to the meetings, but the turning up is also like, okay, if the community says we'd like to see fines and for illegal dumping, then you're kind of following up on their actions, what are their plans, because which I said before, we get a focal point, one person from each department that signed the MOU, we have a focal point that they're the contact person, and we can interface with them and we can follow up with them subsequent to the meetings, what's going on, get support. I mean, hopefully you can have something that's quite collaborative, even in between the meetings, meaning maybe the communities are interfacing with, for example, in this one, with solid waste for management. Maybe they have a community point person also, they have cameras, communities are monitoring, they have a person that they're reporting to, so that there's some kind of, they can work together, because oftentimes there's human resources issues with the government, communities aren't aware of this. So if there can be some kind of way that you're not like, that they can find a way to increase collaboration, and that's one example that you could have, or maybe it all just lies on something that the government has to do, but there could be. So this is where it's an actions are being taken, you're monitoring, you're following up, and you're seeing. Of course, we're not expecting there's going to be tons and tons of actions, so this is not going to be too arduous. My assumption is you might have this 2 actions, my assumption. And we'd be doing very well if we do that, actually. And of course, all that's going on is being updated on the dashboard as we monitor, and we have so changes that are happening, the dashboard. But when that is in place, we'll all get that training, and we'll all be partaking and participating in the dashboard. Then we haven't done this yet. We will be doing this in the second half of this year. We'll be building, once we get our first compact meeting in place, because right now we're doing a lot in terms of outreach and capacity development and building community awareness. So that's our focus. Once we're done that, we're going to go into developing the private sector stakeholders. We've already, in our stakeholder mapping, we actually mapped out our private sector stakeholders. Of course, we'll review that and update and adapt. And we'll do some outreach to them about the project, because we would like them to also be involved in terms of conservation, the private sectors that we could see participating, hotels for sure, maybe the financial sector, insurance, supermarkets. These are some that might be invested in conservation. Sherry Ann, you raised your hand. Yes.
Well, I was going to wait for you to complete the statement. But this is a point to note, because while I'm in the process of compiling or conducting my stakeholder mapping, and I capture the private sector, but is it any particular reason why it is this quote unquote further down in the project, or do we improve on that moving forward? Do we try to connect with them sooner?
You can do that. For us, because we had so much doing, developing the accountability tools. We have a lot of meetings with GPSA, CPR. There's a lot that we have in terms of putting everything together, the templates, the training, the and just meeting with the government. So we've been busy on the ground. But there's no reason that you can't do that at the same time. Absolutely not. So,
okay.
But you might find it a lot to take on, because and arduous. So it just depends on maybe your connections, what you have, it's all independent. Like maybe that's a strong point for you. So they're a good
Good.
partner. And
Yeah,
absolutely.
because yeah, you touched on that because I do have good relations with, and one of the primary private sector in terms of the hotel is the Sandals Resort chain, which are
Mhm.
3 main resorts on island. And I
Right.
do have a good relationship with them still. And there's also a resort, Coconut Bay, on the fringe of one of our KBAs.
Right.
So I certainly want to engage with them soon. So I was just wondering
Oh,
if it's
yes. Oh, no. There is no rule. Again, this is adapt to your country context and your experience. I mean, for us, we were just heavy-handed, just getting everything moving. So this is why, and we're still heavy-handed organizing the capacity building, the communities and seeing the lack of awareness. So that's where our focus has been. But by all means, you have that relationship built, let them know, invite them to the inception meeting, develop their capacity, get them involved, see what,
Awesome.
absolutely. Again, this is adapted to country context. So, and you can see that when we did our stakeholder mapping, we have the private sector, we had the public sector, the CSOs, and am I echoing?
Oh, Joanne is on mute. Joanne is on muted, sorry.
Yeah, Joanne, can you, can you mute, please? I tried to mute him before. Let's see. Okay, he's muted. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so by all means, hey, we'd love to, that'll be very interesting. I think we learned a lot from it and we really appreciate that. We'll be moving forward with that as well. But just like I said, heavy-handed right now. And actually, like, let's say hypothetically, you get moving on this, it'll make it easier because we'll say this is a regional project, Sandals, St. Lucia is doing it, but actually Sandals is not part of this particular KBA, but we can still say this hotel is doing it and participating. So that, I mean, we can definitely support each other. This is Sherry Ann.
Because even on the because even in the national document, the National Biodiversity Conservation Document for St. Lucia, Sandals resorts are stated as a as an important stakeholder, even at the national level. Right. But in terms of the resort in the vicinity is not a Sandals resort, but I'll still reach out to them. It's Coconut Bay, who's nearby Point Sab. Still.
Right. Yeah. So no, that's fine. I mean, the outreach is fantastic. Where we will be targeting hotels in the KBAs and do the outreach to them. So the others will be aware, but Sherry Ann, you will not be aware, and the Jamaican consultant will not be aware that so we have support Intech in one learning exchange per year with the RIT facilitated by Intech and DR. This is not the I'm getting a little confused here. This is actually not so we're always doing learning exchanges basically. So we're always participating in learning, but there is Intech did host I think maybe further down a national conference. So this is where so last year, and they host one per year in terms of building awareness and so for that one when the first one was conducted, and if Yolandi or Johan want to say anything, they certainly jump in here. So they hosted it, we participated virtually, we had persons who, so we had two in a panel, we had 2 public sector institution representatives and one the CSO representative participate who had been in this first CEPF. So they participated and they were part of the panel and there were certain questions. So obviously, and the RIT participated and the GPSA. So it was really great conference, extremely well done. It was fabulous. So that will happen again. And so that would be a yearly thing held by Intech that we support and participate in. So that was in the learning exchange. That's what we're talking about. So then we talk about the data collection. So we have the M&E system. So right now we're still tightening up our framework, results framework. So that because we're adapting it with the GPSA. It's mostly in place. There'll be a little tweaking, and that's the link for it. And so that, and then of course you're just adjusting it, and as we discussed, everything is adjusting and adaptation with GPSA. And so we're saying that we're just continually scheduling workshops and meetings and learning, and as part of what we do in the project. So that's a big part of the GPSA, like I said. And so there'll be the dashboard, all the things that we're learning and doing and growing together. And we talked about the media briefly last time, and we don't need to say any more in terms of it. And that the consultant, you as Sherry-Ann on your side, will just get some media, radio and TV, and one article per year. And we will lead the social media posting on our side, and which is then supported by Intech and Canary. We do have an annual GPSA forum, and they host this every year, and they do some training, and as part of our commitment to participate as GPSA grantees, to participate in the forum and the workshops annually, and those will be sent out. So I got there, the media communications, we talked about the national level conference. So there's a regional hosting. Okay, same thing, the work plans, the reports, participating in meetings. There is the compliance with the safeguards. They're in the drive. We did safeguards for GPSA and CEPF. So Canary did theirs, Intech IHO did ours. And therefore you could just, they're just there in the folder. You could review, that the consultants can review. And then finally, we contribute. Basically, when we say we contribute, all of the things that we do, is the GPSA's theory of change, and they want to know what we learn, how we grow, what we do. And we do have meetings, and when we do our reports, that's what they're looking for. How have we adapted? How have we adjusted? How have we pivoted based on what we've learned and grown? And so that is it in a nutshell. And any questions? We're able to move through this a little faster. Yes, any questions? Silence. Is silence a good thing? Okay, so we have no questions.
Nicola, I think part of it is, once we get in
Yeah.
to things,
Yeah.
it's just like, honestly, at this point,
No, I
I'm not
totally
quite overwhelmed, but I'm just like, okay, this is like next step. I need to get through get through last week.
No,
first.
100%. So, but it's always good to know what the work plan is, because like even with
Sure,
Sherry-Ann
yes, no, I
saying
think this
private
is
sector, when you
useful to
look
have
at
a
the whole
sense.
thing and you have it, so this is there, and
Yeah.
you know how the whole project is running. Because I mean, of course, I understand that you feel overwhelmed. That makes all the sense in the world, because especially the collaborative social accountability. We'll get to that, but it gives you just an overall of what the project is about, what we're doing, what we're going towards, the mindset, how we're, of the donors, et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of have a good context. And this is, I mean, Canary, you may have, the RIT rather, Nicole, you might have a little bit more, but Sherry-Ann is completely new to all of this. So just to give not to overwhelm, but just here's the work plan, it's in the drive, all the documents are there, links are there, access is there. So kind of make it easy for implementation. And last week was just the first part of it. But even when I talk about the capacity development, it's kind of process, even though maybe more folk, developed, that part does cross from the beginning of the project. And then we didn't, so, but as exactly what you're saying, Nicole, once you're doing it, it starts to make sense. I mean, it is any project starting off is overwhelming. And then you start getting into it and dealing with all the issues as you move along. So yes, I definitely don't expect it all to make total sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think once we get started, I will be harassing.
Oh,
And
that's
you'll-
not a
But
problem.
Nicole, we covered this. We covered this. Discussed this.
No, it's fine because it is. And I certainly think that the collaborative social accountability can seem a little intimidating and like out there. But once you, and I mean, even we're just getting started with our compact meetings. And I mean, when I'll stop share that now. So I have this. When we did our compact meeting, our first one, you can't, it was a learning experience, but you can't really call it quote unquote a success. The success was what we learned, but we didn't really have anybody turn up from the community, the public sector. We had one turn up, but tourism, but they're not that much. They're not even a part of the service delivery index. So there was no discussion. There's no feedback. There's no going back and forth. But we did get our feet wet. We were able to present what the results and kind of know what to do next. So we're going to find out when we do our next one, and so now I'm ramping up the community awareness and getting the communities invested and participating and getting them involved in awareness building and targeting in that area. And we're also, of course, conducting the complete social accountability survey. Yeah, so we're in the process of figuring out the compact part as well, because we haven't gotten to that. Yeah, so but we learned from the first one, right? And we're like, we got to ramp this up, because I've said this, one of the biggest challenges with our project is that people aren't invested in biodiversity and conservation. They don't know what it is. They don't know what to ask. What are they going to ask for as a service delivery when they don't even know what it is? And
Right.
Dwayne and I, the community development division who's partnering with us, they are helping us with the surveys so we can going door to door direct, because if we send out the surveys, nobody's doing it. So we're going door to door and getting the surveys done for the collaborative social accountability on baseline. And they attended more than one of the meetings, and still they didn't know do you know what it means to the KBAs, the management of the area? They still didn't understand what we were talking about, even though they've attended 2-3 meetings. It seemed to just like, so like, do you know what a management plan is? No. Have you heard of it? No. Even though they were part of the group determining the indicators, indicating what the needs were, and we talked endlessly about the management plan. So it is a challenge when people really don't know what it is, and it's a new concept. And even if they're hearing it, they're not identifying with it. They're not connecting with it. So when you don't connect with it, it just goes over your head. So you don't remember the language, you don't remember the words, right? So that's, I would say, one of the biggest challenges we face. So we're trying to address that now and ongoing. That would be, to me, we're not going to get any results if we don't get out there and get the community knowledgeable and aware and getting, so we're doing a focus on youth groups. We feel that they may be the ones more invested and aware and willing to come on and participate. we're going to church groups in the area, doing the capacity building. So Dwayne wants to talk a little bit more about that, please jump in, but developing that stakeholder plan. We had Oriel with us, who Sharianne didn't meet, but you met, but she's no longer with us, and we have a new person coming in, and she's a great person to come in because she actually really meets the needs of the project right now, where we are at, in terms of very involved in community and groups and the youth groups, and oversees them and has a lot of connections. So that's good, because then we can optimize their capacity, and the connect, and she can get them to participate and know the leaders. So that's the biggest. So we're really hopeful and optimistic that the next meeting they will know what the service delivery is, because we did the last one, we did the indicators and it was all new. So now we can go back and say, this is what our indicators are, and this is what we're looking to ask for and to be aware of what they are, so we can come with a different kind of capacity building. And that's what we talk about adapting. Because before, the first one is and let's develop the indicators. And now that we have them, it's educating. We can more succinctly say, this is what they are, and then now the community then can discuss this and present this and have a collaborative, discussion. Whereas before they were just sitting there, the few that turned up had nothing to say. And so we want to mitigate that. So to give you some of the challenges, then this is by the learning by doing, and the learning that this would be probably certainly on the English speaking side, I think, very important, because Liliana, you indicated that, your communities are more aware because they had the impact of the management, whereas we don't have that. So no one knows anything. So
no, just a comment on the limitations shared or the challenges you guys experience. But do you have a problem with occupancy or the community in terms of occupancy or residency in the area? Because like some of the protected areas in St. Lucia, I mean, a lot of the citizens generally even in the city are unaware of these protected areas, and they are not very populated. One is along a linear settlement. So do you have a problem where persons generally don't really live in the area, so even coming out?
Well, no, I appreciate what you're saying. But there's parts of it where nobody lives, but you do have communities even on the outskirts where they are participating in that area. Like, they might be fishing in that area. And so they have a connection. They may go to the beach. So they are invested in, our islands are small. So even for me, I don't need to live in an area to be invested in the well-being of, so you can get the communities closest to the KBAs, because for the most part, we do care. And we're targeting that area, but I don't have to live in that area to care very much of what happens in that area. Right. So, and to be disturbed by it, but the ones closest to it will have, but again, you will adapt. So like an environmental group that is just holistic will not live in the area, but they are working in environmental issues associated to that area, right? Island-wide and connected to that area. So we have our environmental group that is national, and then we're targeting. But then for us, that group is well-honed and known, and they do their thing. But the community is connected, and they can't do everything, obviously, and they can't take on a lot of these micro issues, I would say. So like the illegal dumping, that the community itself would be interested and is invested in really doing something, because it immediately impacts them. Even though they don't live there, they do go there and visit the area and want to, and you know, go for walks there or that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nicola, one thing I'm wondering, how are we capturing all of these lessons? Statistically, all of these lessons that
Sorry,
we're learning.
how do we?
capturing? How are we capturing?
Yeah, just
all
in
of
our
these
reporting,
lessons?
yeah, in the reporting. So the GPSA itself asks, the CEPF doesn't ask that in their reporting, but the GPSA. So we could probably, we will then, I'll add that, share the template for reporting for the GPSA. And so that's, so I'll definitely, and that's an annual reporting of what's your lessons learned, how have you adapted, how have you grown? So that's their template. So that's how we would capture, but then we would just capture in any of our meeting notes, any of our yeah.
I mean, like, not that any of us need more work, but it almost seems like we need to do some kind of case study of the,
Right.
at the end. I mean, I know we're meant to be doing these knowledge products with you, but I think that's maybe a little bit different. But just because this is the first time that, they're applying the CSA to the environment, and also in the region, and it just already it seems like the experience in Antigua and the DR have some differences.
Yeah,
know?
that's a good question. I mean, that's something to put, I mean, I know that the GPSA, like their forum, they'll ask us, like I presented at the last forum, and you do present at their forums and they do write-ups. So we will have an external evaluator. We don't have the person yet.
Okay.
And that external evaluator who will be supporting this entire project. So the GPSA secretariat, they have been doing that work. But in process, you're supposed to have the external evaluator from the beginning of the project. Often it doesn't happen. So we will be getting one. So that person, I think, will present a directive because they will be looking, of course, at the learning, the monitoring, evaluation, and learning model, and connected to collaborative social accountability. So they're experiencing not just any external evaluator, but collaborative social accountability experienced external evaluator. With that kind of approach with the learning and doing. So at that point, I think we would have something more structured. Certainly the GPSA, they do write-ups, they do. So I think we will definitely get to that.
Okay.
So, but at this point, we're just doing the formal reporting and in terms of our annual report to GPSA about what we're doing. So DR Intech sends in out, we'll send in ours. And then of course, we'll be getting your reporting as well.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I think that ends up being what they want when they want something published but
Right.
they will definitely want to come in. And so the very first year before we actually when we got approved, before anything happened, disbursement and just process, before COVID in 2019, they had the GPSA forum where all the grantees went to Washington. Now they're doing it virtually. They may continue to do it virtually, and they may do it every number of years. I don't know. That was, and so like the grantees turn up. The grantees actually participate and are invited to GPSA forums indefinitely to share the learning, to share the process. I know they'll be very interested in this in terms of conservation. I think they're getting more and more, and that I see them doing something about. So I think, yes, this what you're asking, Nicole, will definitely, I think, become something that we'll hear more about as we proceed.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just think it's going to be really
Yeah, you
interesting.
are right.
The story
yeah.
of this experience is going to be really interesting.
And that's what they love. That's what they want to hear.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's it. Yeah. Any other questions? No. If not, I guess we can. We did it in an hour. We can.
The questions are coming, Nicola. The questions are coming. Don't
I
worry.
know,
Just
yeah,
not today.
I'm not to get too excited. I get that. I get that. Okay.
They're coming. Don't worry. Don't worry. They're coming. They're coming. And we'll probably be saying, no, we need another session, Nicola. Let's sit down together.
That's fine. That's what we're here for. I mean, we have our, yeah, we're good. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Sherry Ann, did you have a
Yeah.
question?
Oh no, I soak it in and move in, chipping it with it. So like Nicole, I am intrigued and excited for the to see how it all unfolds, and we learn as we go, and we meet at these sessions and share the various similarities and differences on the various islands. So I am quite intrigued and excited for what the future holds for the project.
Thank you. I find it's a unique project in the fact that it's just focused on learning and doing from the GPSA side, and that's the approach, because that's really practical. That's exactly what a project is like. You only learn by doing, and you adapt. And I can say that our experience, and if Dwayne wants to join in here, I do find that you feel like you're doing something. I mean, despite the roadblocks, it does feel, and I think that by the end we'll feel some impact, because we are getting way more proactive in getting biodiversity conservation, getting this awareness building and the accountability and this awareness. I think that, this is something that does feel meaningful. Dwayne, how do you feel?
Yeah, so I would definitely agree. And one of the ways that I like to look at it is, when you have stakeholders at the table, it really enhances that concept of accountability. My favorite part about the project is the quarterly meetings, because it kind of forces the PSIs to look at their responsibilities, look at their service delivery points, and they will think to themselves, okay, I have community groups coming to meet again, so let's put a little bit pep in our step, and let's do something significant, so at least by the next meeting we don't look like we've done absolutely nothing. So I think that a feature of the project that I'm happy about is the regular meetings. I think it can kind of agitate ongoing change instead of things being stuck on the proverbial desk as it is in the Caribbean. So I like that part.
I mean, I think that this project is also, I think it's not political. So
Yeah.
usually when communities think about anything with the government, it's all involved in politics, and disagreements, and I mean, the battling. Whereas this is, I mean, the departments all say they're all mandated to interface with the communities, but they don't have any regular meetings, and there's nothing established in the communities. It's either, it's all political. This is not political. This is an ongoing dialogue. So I think it changes the kind of, and that's what it's the whole about, creating that dialogue. And it's a different way of thinking. And because, like I said, most people don't know, they could complain about this, but if they go in and they hear from the department, look, we have human resource challenges. We'd love to do this, but we have financial and human resources, and then you have a different perspective. And then also the community, I think when they know that the community cares and they're turning up and they're invested and they want something, and they're not hearing it as a complaint, but like, we're coming back, like Dwayne said, we're coming back to meet. I think it really changes something, because it's not like a typical kind of politicized scenario. And communities really interface with politicians. They don't interface with the departments. They're actually the technocrats actually doing the job. They might put in a complaint, go to them, but this kind of going directly to who's actually doing the job. And technocrats don't really change that much normally from one political party to another. Like our director of education remains the same. National Solid Waste, they remain the same. The technocrats that are doing the job, because they're the ones that are executing. So they tend to remain as well. So, which is where I think we can get traction with this kind of project, because if we're only dealing with the ministers, we might, they change, but the fact that we're interfacing with departments and technocrats and the ones that are on the ground doing the work, I think we can have a more sustainable approach. And our goal at the end of this project is that these kind of meetings are maintained, that you get the feedback, you maintain this kind of collaborative approaches, and we can have some results for improved conservation. I mean, that's the goal, and I feel optimistic, actually, despite the challenges. I do. I mean, I'm running optimist, granted, but I do feel that you see people getting more aware. You see, like, you're kidding, and you also see the helplessness and the hopelessness or the pessimism, but there is some kind of like light. Manuel, is there anything you wanted to add on your side from the Dominican Republic's perspective?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Not at the moment. I will say kind of the same, that we're challenges here. More than anything on the KVAs will be the group of interest. There are too many interests in one place, not only by tourism, but also by agriculture, and also by lack of government action or lack of government promises on the use of land. People that were living in these KVAs, that they have been moved out of the KVAs, but still they have their agriculture system within, or their tourism system within the national park or the specific KVA. And then it becomes kind of, I will say specifically because this is happening in Las Galeras at the moment, which is the community that I'm trying to to get back in track with the project. It's hard because they don't really live close to the park, but they have interest in the park, but they have interest on using the land in the park, not to protect the park. And then this is the community that we need to put into that collaborative social accountability process, that they benefit from not having that process, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. So interesting. Yeah, wow. Yeah, challenging.
And then, and on that aspect, I would say that is very challenging at the moment. Talking things out with them in order first to get them like in a room and explain all that and see how can we change it. And they don't really have a very, as you said earlier, even though it is not political, when they see politicians, they think it's political. And then basically they don't want anything to do with politics. They just want to keep running their stuff. So as a challenge, I would say that's the main challenge, at least for this community. On the other two communities, out of my perspective, because I haven't really been there rather than once. And what I have seen through the project is that we have an approach with the community, but we don't really have them get into the subject of social accountability very deeply. There has been other strategies like ecotourism classes, another type of topics where we get the community interested on us, like we build trust, we build relationship, and then now we come, okay, this is going on, we need to move this forward, and here it is. This is social accountability, tam. Of course, we run the baselines, but we haven't got, or at least from my point of view, we haven't got deeply into our service delivery index in our community scorecards, which is our part of the tools, a mechanism to provide a collaborative social accountability process, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes.
We got them engaged, we got their attention, and now we need to take that advantage in order to start using the tools. Because at the beginning, what I was head of and my understanding and their understanding of going into a different educational approach that is related to conservation, but it wasn't directly related to social accountability, was to get them engaged, to grab their attention with other topics related but not directly related, and now we turn them their attentions into what we want. So that I can say from my side on these aspects of the community and using the tools and engaging them and the challenges that I have seen so far into the projection of the implementation of these projects. Will be now turning their attention to social accountability. And then in Las Galeras, it's to get the same community that is getting the benefits of not having a proper management in the area, getting a proper management system and talk about the delivery service that they want from there that they might not be using fully because they're using the land for other objects. And then there are really good aspects though, because the groups that are actually working in Las Galeras, specifically in Cabo Natural Samaná, they are trying or they're having an eco-touristical approach. The only thing that will be kind of, I will say, having some environmental impact is the type of boats they take near to Playa Frontón, to the beach, which actually belongs to that national park, to that KVA. It's a very famous beach in Las Galeras called Frontón. And then people start putting businesses in there, like not like building businesses, but like small shops or like long chairs for the beach. These sunblocks that you put on top of a chair, tables so they can put the food, that kind of stuff. But they haven't really built anything into it. So yes, it will be an interesting challenge in that as well to get that. And the other thing that impacts environmentally besides the tourism boats that come to the area, and I said a tourism boat because of the type of boat that they bring in. They're not supposed to be allowed to that area. And then the fishermen, with the type of fishery they use on site. So basically, this is it from my side in that aspect.
Thank you, Manuel. Well, we certainly have an interesting project. Yeah, go ahead, Nicole. Yeah.
If I may just jump in, Manuel. We have a proposal in from Fundación Podespa to do some work in Cabo Samaná, which I'm going to send you like as soon as we're through here, because it's under consideration and I think it may be interesting. They want to do a number of actions to support like ecotourism in Las Galeras. So I think it would be interesting if you could actually take a look at it with a view to seeing where there might be opportunities in going from. It's one that I think is going to go forward as a large grant, where how we can maximize the synergies between what you want to do under the CSA component and what Codespa is doing, because you're working with it's the same community.
Sorry, Nicole, I'm not able to listen to you fully. Can you speak up a little bit?
Okay.
It's kind of cutting.
Okay, it may be my connection that's coming and going. I'm saying that we have a large grant proposal in from Fundación Codespa to do work in Cabo de Samaná, including
Codespa is a Dominican foundation.
Codespa is from South America.
From?
I don't remember. I think it could be, it's either Peru or Ecuador. I don't remember which country.
Okay, don't worry.
It's not a Dominican NGO, but they're partnering with CSA.
Okay.
CSA is a partner on the ground. And so they are wanting to do a number of things in Cabo de Samaná, including working with communities in Las Galeras on ecotourism development. So I was saying that I will send you the proposal so that you can have a look and see whether or not there are opportunities, or whether or not there are existing or potential opportunities for synergy between the CSA component and this project to sort of build things in from the start.
Okay, perfect. You can send it to me. I can analyze it with the baseline and what I have covered. Because this is kind of, this information that I got was having interviews with different people that I know that works in these areas before. Because I used to live in Samaná, so I'm well aware of some situations, and I know people that are environmentalists. I know CSA as well, and then most of this information comes from people who actually do, I don't know how to say that in English, but senderismo, if you know in Spanish, sendero,
trails,
yes,
trail development.
Yeah, trails development. So people that do trails with groups within the park.
They do like hiking tours. They do guided tours.
Yes, like hiking. Yeah. Then they go all over the park, and also they go by walking through the park to the beach. So that there's like a specific ways already made into the park. So there are these touristic guides.
Right.
That they take people into that trip, and it's like an ecological tourism way of using the park. So I was talking to some of them, and that's how I got this information on what's the actual situation there. So yes, I can look into it. I can talk to them again if I see a component that is useful or something that we can do and connect. And then let you know.
Great. I'll send it to you shortly. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm planning to go there on the 6th of March, 6th or 7th. It will depend. That's Monday 6th or Tuesday 7th.
Okay.
From there, if you need it after that, I will be more than welcome to give you a very good perspective once I go on site.
Well, I mean, I think we might, I'm going to next Friday as well.
You need it for next Friday, you said?
I think Nicole is.
I'm here. I'm done.
You said you need it for next Friday?
Right, we're meeting with you on Friday, not so, Michelle and I.
On the 24th, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Whatever we can arrange there and talk about it. And then only 2 things before, but done with the part of the learning experience. Now it's more like I would love to have a meeting with you, Nicole, about the person we will be hiring in Jamaica. Something that didn't happen until yesterday after our updating meeting is that Intake already approved the process. They already approved to go on to hire the person. So the only thing they said was to look into the national law of these places and then make sure that whatever we hire do not compromise intake or the other person's
Okay.
rights.
Yeah,
So
so whenever you're ready to have a conversation, just let me know.
probably tomorrow morning, because I would like to have it. Probably I would like to have that
Yeah,
next
sure.
week ongoing and running.
Yeah.
And then with Nicola, later on today, if you want to discuss what Manjola said.
Yes, that's fine. Yes. And just, I know, just cognizant of the time, just quickly, Nicole, any updates since we have you here? Oh, yes, we can stop recording. Yes, yes.